What you're also going to get with Oladapo is effort, man. This guy is a worker. He's just flying across the field here, forces a fumble. Just incredible play here. This isn't to his side of the field. He's way off to the left here. Chases down this number 7, so you see nice speed on display. Boom, there's that power. And that's what's really nice about having a guy that is this big and this strong. He's not bulky, you know, he's not Debo, but he could still punch that ball out. Hello, good people. Packers fans, football fans, and random internet viewers who are at least a little bit curious about how football is played at the pro and college level. My name is Tim Noonan. I have been a fan of the Packers for the last 20 years and a fan of scouting college players for the last 8 years. And today I will be doing a video breakdown of the Packers' 5th round pick safety Kitan Oladapo out of Oregon State. If you like the video, make sure to take a second to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that little bell so that you know the next time I'm on here talking about football at the pro or college level. Without further ado, let's get into what to expect from this breakdown of Kitan Oladapo. The first area of Oladapo's game that I'm going to look at is his coverage. A lot of times Oregon State threw him in man situations or in zone match situations that played out like man, where he was against slower slot receivers or against tight ends, and he did pretty well in those spots. He has fluid hips. He has good athleticism, solid speed, solid agility, and also he has very good size at 6'2", 200-plus pounds. Just a bigger dude, nice frame, and he uses his strength and speed well in pass coverage. The second area that I will talk about with Oladapo is his movement and his pursuit, both in the pass and in the run. I think he moves through the field pretty fluidly. Like I said earlier, he has fluid hips, so we'll look at some plays where he flips his hips well, and those plays just pop up throughout this breakdown because he does have fluid hips. And we'll dig into a little bit of his pursuit and some good pursuit angles that he took. In general, I think he pursued ball carriers well. He put himself in a position consistently to take down ball carriers, or at least fit runs in a way that would compromise ball carriers or put them in situations with tough decisions. We will also get to see a nice hustle play that he has, just chasing down a ball carrier from behind and really not giving up on a play. The third area of his game that I want to look at is just some things that I want him to shore up. Like I said, he takes good pursuit angles a lot of the time, but sometimes he took poor angles or a poor step here or there. So we'll look at some of those things that led to missed tackles, and in general, I would just like to see him become more of a sure tackler. I also have some questions about how he plays in coverage, not necessarily his physical capabilities. We'll get into a little bit of that, but I think more the decision-making that he makes at the time of the snap. So sometimes he goes too deep, sometimes he overcommits to areas and takes himself out of a play, and that may be on him, it may be on the coordinator. We'll get into it in that section. And finally, I'll just talk about where I think he fits with the team. I think he and Evan Williams will be fighting for that last safety spot. Last year, the Packers brought 5 safeties and 4 corners into the roster. I think this year, they're probably going to be bringing in more corners and fewer safeties. I think there's probably going to be four roster spots for safeties, and you already have at least 3 of those taken by Xavier McKinney, Javon Bullard, and I think they're going to bring back Anthony Johnson Jr., so that 4th spot is probably going to go to Kitan Oladapo or Evan Williams, so talk a little bit about that. And if he does make that final 53-man roster, or even if he's like right on the fringes, he's a practice squad guy and maybe he rotates in as people get injured throughout the year, I'll talk about where I see him fitting with the Packers defense as a developmental safety and a guy who can contribute against tight ends and slower wide receivers. That is enough preview. We're going to get into the first area of his game, which is just his ability to cover, in particular in man or zone match situations where he's just responsible for one guy, and seeing how he takes on those responsibilities. Against Washington, you see him in the slot here against Jalen McMillan. It's 3rd and 10. The defense doesn't have a ton of help over the top, so he gives him a lot of cushion. Jalen McMillan is a pretty fast guy. He's faster than Oladapo at running a 4.47 40. So Oladapo does well here pre-snap just to give him some space, but then he walks it down, closes that space, and doesn't get phased at the stem of the route, just follows him out here. And it's He stays with him well. You see he's close at the end of the play. On this secondary angle, you can see he hangs with McMillan through the entirety of the route. He puts himself in a position to make a play on the ball if Penix decides to throw it out McMillan's way, and he doesn't overreact at the stem of the route. This is a solid man rep against a fast receiver who you have to respect on the out and who you have to watch over the top. Against UCLA in 2023, you see him as the deep safety here on this deep half. Oregon State is showing cover 2, and then they roll into some sort of either man defense, cover 3, zone match defense, whatever they end up in. Oladapo ends up responsible for this slot receiver here. So he follows the slot receiver across the field. I like how he moves through the space, but I would like to see him just hang more closely onto this crosser. But this was something that I wasn't quite sure if all that space is on him. It seems like the whole defense is committed to showing the offense cover 2 with 2 corners down low, 2 safeties deep right at the start of the snap. So there's only so much he can do about where his pre-snap positioning is, if that's what the defense is doing here, is showing a fake cover 2 look. But I would like to see him just get downfield, but there is a lot of traffic to work through. So ultimately hangs with his man. If his guy is the target on that play, then I think he's in a position to make a play and make a tackle. But if the offense went to his receiver, they probably convert here. Against USC here, we see Oladapo on another crosser. Oregon State sends this corner on a blitz, and so he ends up responsible for that receiver. Follows him across the field well. So he's at the top of the screen, and he disappears here. But you can see later in the play, he hangs with that receiver, creates a tight window, pass goes incomplete. So really what we're doing here is just checking, like, where's he start, where's he finish. That ball ends up incomplete. He's right on number 2's back. He's right on Brendan Rice's back. So just a good play following a crosser in what turns out to be played like a man coverage. Against Oregon in 2023, we see him in the slot here against a tight end. And tight end puts a move on him, and so he ends up behind. Still gets a hand on that ball, bothers this pass. I would like to see tighter coverage here. I would like to see him not get faked out, but good recovery speed. Nice job laying out just to put a hand on the ball, make the tight end make a difficult play. He can't come down with that pass. Ultimately, a good play. Maybe he overcommits to that outside shoulder, bites on that fake, but puts a hand on the ball. Pass ends up incomplete. Live to fight another down. The second area of his game that we'll look at is just his movement in general and his hip fluidity. He moves pretty well. He is not the fastest guy. He's not the strongest guy, but he is a plus athlete. I would say he's right around average to just above average in a few different areas of size, strength, speed. I think agility and speed-wise, there's guys he can beat. There's guys who can beat him. And then those top-tier players, those super fast receivers, super strong receivers, the guys like A.J. Brown, those guys are going to, if he ever ended up in that situation, it would be very compromising for him. But against just that second and third tier of receivers, against that second tier of tight ends, I think he's reliable because of his movement. So we'll get into what he looks like moving in space. Against USC in 2022, we see a run play here, attacks the receiver's inside shoulder. The run spills outside. He just follows, and teammate gets a tackle down the sideline. Obviously, things go haywire in front of him. There's not a ton for him to do at that point. He has to fit this run and make sure that the running back spills outside and then still get off the block and follow. So I think he just does a great job fitting here. He's not somebody who's going to throw a receiver and go make that tackle. That's not his game. His role is to fit runs, to put running backs in situations to make difficult decisions. Because of where he's at, how he fits this, I think it's just an explosive play, and you live to fight another down here. We see him here against Washington in 2023 as the deep safety, and he ends up responsible for Jalen Polk. And you just see how quickly and fluidly he turns his hips. He stops, turns around, flips those hips, follows Jalen Polk downfield. Solid, fluid movement. He's tracking the options in front of him. Boom, turns, and Jalen Polk is sandwiched between him and the other defensive back. It's a tight window if Penix wants to go there. Nice job to cut off the deep route downfield. Against Boise State here in 2022, the responsibilities change for the defense as this receiver comes across the field. Oladapo quickly rotates down, and I even like he does a little point here just to communicate, hey, I got my man. He seems like a pretty communicative defender, which I really appreciate. That's something that I like, especially from a safety, where the responsibilities can change with pre-snap motion a lot. So just nice job, points that out. But what I'm really focusing on here is just fluid hips in the slot here. He's running down to the line of scrimmage, doesn't quite know where his man's going to go out of the stem of the route, and then just follows him really easily out of the stem of that route. Just nice play, turn your hips quickly, follow, stay glued to your man. Pass goes incomplete somewhere else because Oladapo's man just isn't open. Against USC in 2022, we see a 1st and 10. So this is a situation where right around midfield, this could be a pass, could be a run. The offense has 2 receivers on either side. They have one running back, so it could be a pass, it could be a run. And I don't love that Oladapo commits to gunning so far back so quickly, takes himself out of this run play. But then when he has to recover from that depth, his angle isn't great. Running back cuts back inside, gets a few more yards. And I would like to see a few things here. Number one, don't just gun so far back. He's already more than 15 yards off the line of scrimmage here, and the ball has just been snapped. That's how you take yourself out of a run play. Then on this pursuit angle, just goes way too far to the outside where there's already a couple guys to the outside. You might want to force the running back more towards where you have the support rather than, 2 guys out to the left compared to this number 23 on towards the inside with yourself. I think this was not a great angle. It wasn't a great decision at the snap. And this leads me to something that I wonder about this defense. I wonder if he was coached to fly back here at the snap, because he does this for a few reps throughout different games, especially against USC. And against USC, I do understand it. You got Caleb Williams at quarterback. That's scary. You don't want to get beat over the top because he can hit everything deep. So I understand that. But this popped up against Boise State. This popped up against UCLA. And the quarterback threats there and the receiving threats are just not the kinds of threats that really make you shake in your boots for deep pass threats. And Oladapo was the main guy that was flying out back. There were other safeties that would fly, but he was really gunning. So I go back and forth between thinking, this is Oladapo trying to be cautious and keep everything in front of him, or this is what Oladapo was coached to do. So this play, it just takes him out, and we'll look at some more of those plays later. But, for his movement, there's definitely room for him to grow. Against Oregon in 2023 here, we just have a good old-fashioned hustle tackle. This is not his man, but he chases him down from behind. That number 15 for Oregon is Tez Johnson. He is a fun playmaker with the ball in his hands. Not easy to run that guy down. And so I really love this. He moves so fluidly from covering his man to just flying in pursuit downfield, maybe saving a touchdown here. So great movement, great effort on that play. In this third section, I'm going to talk about 2 areas of Oladapo's game that I either want to see him grow or at least shore up the limitations. Those areas are making sure to bring down ball carriers and just being a little bit closer in coverage. Sometimes in both of these areas, he can overcommit or be hesitant, and either way kind of takes himself out of place. Against Oregon here in 2023, we see him fly down from the deep safety position, and that number 15, Tez Johnson. Oladapo got him on the last play, but doesn't win this one, and he just gets juked out there. So you just see here, I think, a little bit of an angle issue. He doesn't get close enough, quick enough, and that's on the pursuit angle that he takes. He takes a flat angle towards the sideline, and there's all this space between him and Johnson. And then at the point where maybe he could bring down Johnson, you see some of the limitations of his agility there. He is an agile player, but he's sort of right around the median of agility. So just if his speed and agility aren't necessarily going to be things that get better over time, but what can get better is the pursuit angles he takes, and then what he does when he gets to that point where you just want to see him get a hand or something on a receiver to bring him down. Against USC in 2022, we just have a very simple missed tackle, and for a variety of reasons, he just had a handful of these in his games that I saw. Some of them were just simple, like, okay, you tried to wrap up and you didn't. Want to shore that up. Other missed tackles that I saw of his were sort of like, he would try to really thump somebody, but then he would just bounce off and that player would keep going. So just want to see those missed tackles be tightened up, be limited. He takes a pretty good pursuit angle here. So I'm not worried about pursuit on this one. I just want to see him finish this play. Against Boise State here in 2022, I think you see the limitations of his strength and his power. So he stands tall and strong at 6'2", 215 pounds, good size for a safety. And he goes up against a 6'6", 220-pound Taylon Green from Boise State here. Taylon Green now a quarterback for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Excited to see what this big dude does this year with Arkansas. But for the purposes of this play, Taylon Green, nice athlete, a little bit of Josh Allen stuff where he's just super big. He is faster than you would think he is for his size, and boy does he hit hard. So they just meet at the end zone line here, and Green runs through him and wins this rep against Oladapo. I'm not quite sure what I would want Oladapo to do differently here. I don't think this is necessarily an area of his game to even shore up. He reads this pretty well. Maybe he could get to the outside a tick faster, but I just don't think that's really, on him. I think he is patient because it's a read situation, so he doesn't want to take himself away from attacking the running back towards the inside. He meets Green low here, tries to wrap up, and Green, with that 6'6" body, 220 pounds, just picks him up off the ground and gets into the end zone. So I think this is less about saying like, oh, you know what, I want to see this from Oladapo, and this is more about like, all right, this is the limitation of his game. He's not going to be able to necessarily rock these bigger dudes, but damn if he's not going to try. In 2023, we have another play where he is, he's in this deep half look, and then he rolls over. He's the middle of the field defender, and he just flies super deep, super fast, takes himself out of this run play. And I just want to see him not get 15 to 20 yards off the line of scrimmage immediately without knowing where the play is going. And again, this may not have been on him. This may not have been his decision. I'm 50-50 on whether, this is his idea to keep everything in front of him, or if this is on how he was coached. Just want to see him hang more closely to the first down marker on these plays, because if he is 5 yards closer, he can roll down a little bit better rather than, being able to just put his hands on a guy at the first down marker. If he's not rolling so far deep, maybe he responds a little bit more quickly to meet this running back 5 to 7 yards off the line of scrimmage, help prevent a first down. Another play against UCLA in 2023, he flies deep, and I just want to see him respond more quickly once this underneath play happens. I think there's no reason that he shouldn't be in on this tackle, right? He's got his eyes in the backfield, and he's got time to, right about now, this is where you want to throttle down, okay, get downfield, and he should be there more quickly. And a note from Lance Zierlein that might inform what happens here is Oladapo does kind of struggle to get out of that back pedal. We saw some hip fluidity earlier where he can transition pretty well from backpedaling, I think, into a run. But Zierlein's note about him being a little choppy out of the back pedal might help explain why he's not closer on this tackle on this play. And again, don't know why he's flying so deep so quickly. Just want to see him hang a little bit more closely towards the line of scrimmage, maybe 12 to 15 yards off rather than 15 to 20, 25 yards off. hanging with this UCLA game in 2023. We see him over the top of this slot receiver. This ends up just being a man assignment. The safety at the bottom of the screen rolls over the middle of the field. I think the defense is trying to give the offense a sort of cover 2 look here, with Oladapo being deep, this corner being rolled up on that receiver on the outside. And I just don't think it's worth it. It puts Oladapo in this position where right before the snap, he's backpedaling, even though he has this man assignment. So he's backpedaling. He's more than 10 yards off his man. Then he has to go back towards his man because he's backpedaled off that position. And even with moving forward, the quarterback already has seen this space. Once the quarterback has seen this space, it's hard for Oladapo to be in a position where he can really make a play on the ball. And luckily, this goes incomplete. At the time the ball gets to the receiver, this is an easy pitch and catch for the offense. And this is not just a situation where it seems like Oladapo is purely responsible for staying over the top of this receiver, making a tackle. This is a position where he could, if he initially starts off the line of scrimmage, maybe eight yards deep rather than 10 yards deep, he can throttle a little bit more closely to the receiver. He doesn't have to do this little dance that he does where he's backpedaling, then he's forward, then he's stopped, then he's gunning. There's just a lot of unnecessary movement here. It still kind of looks like a cover 2 here if you're 8 yards off. The offense isn't going to be super fooled, but still could rotate into a cover 2. Stay there, keep your feet settled, and attack this play when the ball is snapped. But that dancing creates some space. Luckily, this goes incomplete. Just want to see him be a little bit more steady at the snap of the ball, especially in man coverage where you have to be kind of focused on your man and you just have to respond to whatever he's doing. To close out, I'll talk about where I see him fitting with the Packers. I think he and Evan Williams are going to be fighting for the last safety spot. I don't see the Packers rostering 5 safeties with the amount of defensive backs that they have to take. The Packers are going to have to roster quite a few corners. They're not going to go into this season with 4 corners like they did last year. I think a big reason they went into the season with 4 corners last year was Eric Stokes was hurt. So really they had 5. They just had a guy who they didn't know was going to be healthy. So this year, they're bringing Jair back, Eric Stokes, Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine. That's 4 spots right there. I think they're probably going to roster Corey Ballantyne. Then they may even roster Kalen King. So there's 5 to 6 cornerbacks in the mix. That doesn't leave a lot of room to have 5 safeties when last year the balance was 4 corners, 5 safeties. So I think ultimately, he's going to be fighting for a roster spot against Evan Williams. And they're good at different things. Evan Williams is a little bit more of a gambler and reading the offense and kind of responding and freestyling. And Oladapo plays within structure. He plays within structure well. He has size and speed to keep him on the field for 3 downs. He reads offenses relatively well. He reacts pretty well to offenses, and he's got very fluid movement in his hips in the deep safety part of the field. So. I think there's just different things that Oladapo and Williams bring, but if Oladapo ends up being the guy, I think what he brings to the field is sort of a hybrid safety, nickel linebacker sort of versatility with his size and strength, where he can roll down and help in the run, even if you have another 4 defensive backs or 5 defensive backs on the field. I also think he can be the dime defender, covering a 4th wide receiver or a 2nd-tier tight end. I think you can rely on him to cover those guys and stay in position and make life tough for them. Against Boise State in 2022, just starting this play, we're looking at his alignment. So he's aligned right over the point of the 40. You can see where the tight end is here. The tight end is outside of that 40. So that means Oladapo is lined up over the inside shoulder of the tight end, playing inside leverage. When the ball is snapped, Oladapo takes this right foot step back, and his shoulders immediately are pointed towards the sideline a little bit. Tight end cuts inside, fluidly follows his man, no hesitation, no extra steps or dancing, just a really nice coverage play. And I think he looks so comfortable against tight ends. He looks confident. He's pretty at ease. I think he starts to get skittish against receivers, but against tight ends, this is what you're getting. And I think this is a reliable thing you could see for him if he has to roll down into a nickel or dime or sort of that hybrid safety linebacker defensive back position. What you're also going to get with Oladapo is effort, man. This guy is a worker. He's just flying across the field here, forces a fumble. Just incredible play here. This isn't to his side of the field. He's way off to the left here. Chases down this number 7, so you see nice speed on display. Boom. There's that power. And that's what's really nice about having a guy that is this big and this strong. He's not bulky, he's not Debo, but he could still punch that ball out. I think also what you're going to see if Oladapo is the guy on the 53-man roster, when he is mixed in the deep safety role, I think he makes a lot of good reads. So here in quarters, you see him eyes in the backfield, responds here, helps out with this man deep, makes a really tough window for Jalen Polk and Michael Penix. Looking at the secondary angle here, right? Eyes are in the backfield. All right. Don't quite fly into backpedal yet. See what's happening. All right. Get your eyes on Jalen Polk. Okay. You got depth behind him. All right. Eyes are back on the quarterback. Where are we going? We're flying out to Jalen Polk. So you just see him processing in real time. His eyes, I think, are everywhere they should be on this play. And it results in a pretty mundane, incomplete pass because there's just nowhere for the offense to go. We saw a little bit of the strength on display on the forced fumble against Washington. You also see his ability to be a pass rusher and enforce his will here. So gets out here, attacks this running back, hand up, and you just see that size is super useful. He has the strength to stand up this running back, but still the balance and power and timing to jump up and bat this ball down. Just a really nice play. If he's going to roll down to be sort of a semi linebacker, like this is something you could work with. Boom. And we've got another one. This is what it might look like with him as a hybrid linebacker, just on a blitz from depth, takes down Caleb Williams here. This is a great disguised look because initially, he's kind of further back and he times this perfectly where he walks up to the line of scrimmage, gets away from that running back. Running back doesn't phase him, and he almost gets a forced fumble there. But that is a mean tackle. I mean, that is not nice. There's ill intent there, and that's what you want to see from your safety blitzing. Kitan Oladapo is a player I would be excited to see make the 53-man roster. I am really curious to see what the competition looks like between him, Evan Williams, and Anthony Johnson Jr. Anthony Johnson Jr. having made the roster last year, I think is sort of the incumbent there. I don't think both of those guys are going to beat him out of a job. So it comes down to Evan Williams, Kitan Oladapo, who's getting that last roster spot. And they both can challenge each other and make each other grow in different ways. So I'm excited to see how that happens throughout the training camp process. And if they both end up staying signed to the Packers, even if they both don't make the 53-man roster, I'm excited to see how they push each other throughout the year. And how, what's the dynamic with Xavier McKinney look like? How does Xavier McKinney possibly play a mentoring role to those guys? I like his combination of size, strength, agility. He has room to grow in reading and pursuing, but I still think there's a lot of plays that show he can be adept at those things, and it won't take a ton of study or a ton of prep. I think when this becomes his full-time job, I think there will be a step up in his pursuit, how he's reading offenses, how he's reacting to offenses, and ultimately, if that gets a lot better quickly, it's going to be very tough then for Evan Williams, the other safety, to make the roster. This is kind of where I see him fitting in compared to other safeties in the draft this year. One of my favorite defensive backs in this draft was Cam Kitchens. I was a little bit higher on Kitchens than other people. I thought in January that he was a first-round pick, and then as the process went along and we saw that there were a ton of really talented offensive linemen, there were a ton of really talented interior defensive linemen, that there were even a handful of edges that sort of really became exciting prospects throughout March and April. Totally understand why Kitchens fell. I ultimately would not have taken Kitchens in the first round, but Kitchens I was pretty high on just because of his ability to read, to freestyle, to play within structure, to play as a tackler. I think he's a really versatile player. I also appreciated Tyler Nubin's game. Tyler Nubin played great in structure, was a ball hawk. You just couldn't throw a ball in his area because he was going to come down with it. Set the Minnesota school record for interceptions. He's a fun player to watch. But where I see Kitan Oladapo fitting in, is just sort of a tier below those guys. And not to say that he'll never touch where those guys' games are at, because I think Kitchens' game physically, I think he's sort of made the most of his gifts, and I think his career is going to be a matter of how does he continue to grow his understanding of the game, how does he continue to be a leader, how does he communicate to his teammates, because he does all those things well, and I think that's what put him a tier above the other guys for me. But Oladapo, if he can grow those areas of his game, he's got the physicality, he's got enough speed and agility to really maximize his strength. I think he can get to being a starting safety comfortably in the NFL. It's just going to take some growth. So I hope he's around for a while. There's going to be life after Xavier McKinney in 4 or 5 years. Kitan Oladapo might be that guy. So again, if you liked the video, make sure to take a second to hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell so that you know the next time I'm on here talking about professional or college football. And thank you very much for your time today. Feel free to leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of the video. Let me know if you agree, disagree. And if there's anything I missed, as always, please let me know. Always looking to grow my knowledge of the game. And going to enjoy some cold brew, go for a walk with some people, and hope you have a good day, a lovely day, and that your week goes the way you want it to. Peace.